and welcome back to Voyage of a Time Wanderer. Today I'm going to be sharing my nonfiction November 2020 TBR. This year I'm really excited to be participating in Nonfiction November again. I think this is my 4th or 5th year participating, and I have some wonderful books that I'm really looking forward to diving into this month. So Nonfiction November is a celebration of nonfiction reading. This year it is hosted by Olive from A Book Olive, Sabrina from Steakachino, Natalie from Curious Reader, Jill from The Book Bully, and Andrea from Infinite Text. So I'm very grateful for them for hosting one of my favorite months of reading. So as always, there are 4 prompts for Nonfiction November, and this year they are time, discovery, buzz, and movement. And I have chosen something for each of them. For time, I have chosen Elizabeth's Rival, The Tumultuous Tale of Lettice Knollys, Countess of Leicester, by Nicola Tallis. And look at how pretty the cover is. Ooh. So this is actually a book I had started before a few years ago. I got this far in. And when I was younger, I was a big Tudor history buff. I loved reading like Tudor era YA, and I felt like I really had an understanding of the time period. And then it had probably been maybe 10-15 years since I had last read like Tudor era fiction. And so when I started this book, I was really interested in the topic, but I found that I had kind of forgotten the cast of characters of Tudor era England, and I wasn't really sure who was who and what was happening. So this year I have been reading through Philippa Gregory's Plantagenet Tudor series, which I know is not the most historically accurate in some situations, but is a lot of fun. And I've been enjoying reading through one of those a month. And I'm almost at the end now. I think I have 2 or 3 more books left in that series, so I'm right at the time period that this book is set at. So I feel like I have a much better grasp of where Tudor history was at in the time period of this book, who the main characters are, the main personalities, what kind of conflicts was happening in England and in the world at the time. So I'm really looking forward to getting to this. So this book is about Lettice Knollys, who was a lady of the Tudor era during Elizabeth I's reign, and she was actually believed to be likely Henry VIII's illegitimate granddaughter. And she married, I think she was the second wife of Elizabeth I's favorite, Robert Dudley. And apparently, from the back of this book, for Lettice, marrying Robert would be her downfall. So it explains kind of the similarities between these two people who were both descended from Henry VIII, were both involved to some degree with the same man, and kind of the conflicts that arose, and tells Lettice's side of the story and goes through, talks about her life, her experiences. It's got some wonderful photos included that I'm really excited about. It's surprising to me that you can really see the similarities between Lettice and Elizabeth. So this is Elizabeth and this is Lettice. So they definitely looked similar. So they've got some great graphics, and then goes through and tells a little bit about her life. So I'm looking forward to that. I chose it for the prompt time, obviously, because it is about a different time period. For the prompt movement, I have chosen Vermeer's Hat, The 17th Century and the Dawn of the Global World by Timothy Brook. So I'm very excited about this one. It is talking about how the Dutch Golden Age was a period in which global trade really emerged. So it's perfect for movement because apparently the author is a scholar of Chinese studies, so it's really focusing on Dutch-Chinese trade and how it was developing at the time. And what's fascinating about it, from my understanding, is it's going to take paintings from Vermeer, who's one of my favorites, and talk about how different items in his paintings illustrate how the world was changing and moving towards a more globalized environment at the time. So like in this painting in the background, there's a map, and they're going to explain what the significance of the map is. So the description says, in one painting, a Dutch military officer leans towards a laughing girl. In another, a woman at a window weighs pieces of silver. In a third, fruit spills from a porcelain bowl onto a Turkish carpet. Vermeer's images haunt us with their beauty and mystery. What stories lie behind these exquisitely rendered moments? As Timothy Brook shows us in Vermeer's hat, these pictures, which seem so intimate, actually open doors onto a rapidly expanding world. The dashing officer's hat is made of beaver fur that European explorers got from North Americans in exchange for weapons. Beaver pelts, in turn, financed the voyages of sailors seeking new routes to China. There, with silver mined in Peru, Europeans would purchase by the thousands the porcelain so often shown in Dutch paintings at the time. Timothy Brook traces the ever-widening web of trade that might bring a beaver pelt, a Turkish carpet, or a Chinese bowl to a sitting room in Delft. The wharves of Holland, wrote a French visitor, were an inventory of the possible. Vermeer's hat shows just how rich this inventory was, and how the urge to acquire such things was refashioning the world more thoroughly than anyone quite realized. It offers us a rich new understanding both of Vermeer's paintings and of the era they portray. So the Dutch Golden Age is one of my favorite eras of history to learn about. I find it absolutely fascinating. Some of my ancestry is Dutch, and I'm working on my Dutch family tree right now, and I've gotten back into the 17th century on a few lines. So I'm just very interested to know more about what that world would have been like for them, and I love Vermeer's paintings, so I think this is going to be a win. And then at the same time, I also got out of the library this Vermeer, Rembrandt, and the Golden Age of Dutch Art. And this is actually a exhibit booklet from the Rijksmuseum when they were touring in Canada. So it has a bunch of paintings and descriptions. So I don't think I'm going to read this one in full, but I thought it would be a nice companion piece to Vermeer's hat. Then for the prompt buzz, I'm choosing to read Pope Francis's new encyclical, Fratelli Tutti. Don't know if I'm saying that right. Fratelli Tutti, which stands for on fraternity and social friendship. So this encyclical was just released at the beginning of October and apparently does for humanity what his first encyclical, Laudato Si, on our common world, did for environmentalism. In it, he's supposed to be discussing the importance of friendship and humanity working together and social connection, and also examining through the lens of COVID-19 how the world has failed to work together and collaborate during a crisis. So it's a very timely, has been a lot of buzz about it on the internet, at least in the circles that I follow, and I'm really excited to read another of his work. His first encyclical on environmentalism was really interesting and very well written. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say on these issues more related to humanity, social connection, friendship, community, etc. Then for discovery, I actually have one that spilled over from Victober. I was hoping to get to it in October, but I didn't manage, and since it's nonfiction, I thought I would move it over onto my nonfiction November TBR instead, and that is Rag and Bone, A Family History of What We've Thrown Away by Lisa Woolett. I've got it on my Kindle. I don't think it's actually released yet in North America, in paperback at least, so I bought it on Kindle. I'll be reading it on my phone. So just to read quickly the blurb for this. From relics of Georgian empire building and slave trading through Victorian London's barged-out refuge to 1980s fly tipping and the pervasiveness of present-day plastics, Rag and Bone traces a story of our rubbish and through it our history of consumption. In a series of beachcombing and mudlarking walks, beginning in the Thames in central London, then out to the Kentish estuary, and eventually the seas around Cornwall, Lisa Woolett also tells the story of her family, a number of whom made their living from London's waste and who made a similar journey downriver from the center of the city to the sea. A beautifully written but urgent mixture of social history, family memoir, and nature writing, Rag and Bone is a book about what we can learn from what we've thrown away, and a call to think more about what we leave behind. So the reason I chose this for discovery is both because I'll be learning about a new topic, but also because the book itself is dealing with beachcombing and discovering treasures in things that other people threw away. So the reason I'm so interested in this book is that in doing my genealogy, I've actually found out that my 5 times great-grandfather was a marine store dealer in Victoria-era Newcastle. And a marine store dealer was basically junk collector slash seller combined with a pawn shop, combined with kind of a rag and bone man. So instead of going around and collecting garbage directly from people or off the streets, marine store dealers would buy garbage from rag and bone men and then sell it in their shops. Kind of like early day thrift stores in a way, but I think a little bit junkier. So I'm very interested in learning more. I found out about my 5 times great-grandfather right around the time I was reading Bleak House, and Mr. Crooks in Bleak House is a marine store dealer, and I just find it fascinating. I love to think the fact that my 5 times great-grandfather was a marine store dealer at the same time Bleak House was being published, and that somebody reading it in Newcastle would have been picturing his shop when reading about Mr. Crooks. So I'm very interested in reading Rag and Bone, discovering more about a not so glamorous trade, but a trade that a lot of people survived off of in the Victorian era. And then I'm really interested to see how she brings that into a present day environmentalism spin. So that's Rag and Bone, and that's my pick for Discovery. So obviously I've got a few other books on my TBR for November, but those are my nonfiction specific picks, and hopefully I have a great reading month. If you're participating in Nonfiction November this year, I hope you have some wonderful reads, learn some interesting new facts, immerse yourself in some new worlds and cultures, and until next time, enjoy wandering through the pages of a good book.